Welcome to a Practice Pro CPD, brought to you by LawPro.
Well, according to my iPhone, it's 9:30. So I will invite our speakers to join us, and I will begin by welcoming everyone. I'm Joan Rattaic-Lang. I'm the Executive Director of the Toronto Lawyers Association. And just to make sure you're in the right program, it's Insurance 101 this morning. This is yet another one in a series of partnerships with the Toronto Lawyers Association and LawPro. And we are thrilled to be able to offer the operational support to make these things happen. LawPro presents wonderful speakers with a great moderator and has a great learning opportunity for everyone. So this is wonderful for us. Our next program will be on June 22nd, Top Tips for Advocates. And then after that, we will be taking a break over the summer, and the fall topics will be announced soon, but we're planning to do a few more sessions, so stay tuned. You find out about them through your LawPro communications, or you can find out about them through the Toronto Lawyers Association. If you want to find out about this program or any others that the TLA offers, a link has been provided in the chat box for our education and events page. Feel free to take a look at it. I'm now going to turn things over to Sean Necker, our moderator for today, and wish everyone a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan. And thank you as well to Sandra, Claire, and Deirdre, and everyone at the TLA for helping LawPro put together these programs of practice management materials. My name is Sean Erker, and I am the legal writer and content manager with LawPro. So I work in the practice management and claims prevention area of the LawPro Insurance Company. And I am joined today by Victoria Crew Nelson, who is the Vice President, Underwriting and Customer Service and Secretary with LawPro. Catherine McKay Pretty, which is Insurance Advisor with Lawyers Financial. Cindy Ramos, QA Analyst and Trainer with the Underwriting and Customer Service Department at LawPro. And Shauna Ramsey, National Consultant with Title Plus Title Insurance. Now, all of these speakers are experts in the field of insurance, and even better, specifically in the field of insurance directed at lawyers. Now, I'm speaking to you from Toronto, which is also where the offices of LawPro and the Toronto Lawyers Association are located. And I want to respectfully acknowledge that Toronto is on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it's now the home of many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto is also covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Now, because this is a virtual meeting and we're not all gathered in the same space, many of you have different traditional territories that you are on. And if so, we invite you to take some time to learn about and acknowledge those territories. As a resource, you can visit the website nativelands.ca, that's native-lands.ca, to search for a location to find the appropriate territory acknowledgement. I would like to recognize the long history of all First Nations in Ontario and the Métis and Inuit peoples, and we thank the First Nations who live in these lands and lived in these lands for sharing them with us in peace. Now, this is part of the ongoing series that LawPro does with the TLA called Thursday Tips. And the goal of this series is to provide practice management advice and tips to improve the way that lawyers manage their practices, manage their businesses, and deal with their clients and provide services to their clients. And if this program specifically, what that means is that we want to try to help lawyers see the big picture of the different insurance needs of being a lawyer. Now, part of that, of course, is errors and omissions, malpractice insurance, which LawPro covers, but there is a bigger constellation of risk involved in managing a practice, whether you are a sole practitioner or you manage a small or larger firm, or even if you are a lawyer who operates within a firm and you need to understand or know that your insurance needs are being met. And as such, we're going to divide this program into three different areas of discussion. First, we're going to provide a big picture overview of all of the different various insurance packages, and we're calling this putting the insurance puzzle together. Now, coincidentally, that is one of the resources that is available in the program materials. And there is a link in the chat where everyone who is attending this program can download the PDF of all of the program materials and review that later or during the program itself, which will kind of back up a lot of the content that we'll be talking about. You can also find these resources at practicepro.ca/CPD, which is where you can also find video recordings of all of our previous programs, as well as a video recording of this program, which will be up approximately a week from now. And you can, of course, download the program materials from that page as well. Now, after we kind of get this big picture of putting the insurance puzzle together, which is going to be covered primarily by Victoria and Catherine, who are going to talk about not just E&O insurance, but also what E&O insurance covers, what it doesn't cover, and the different types of insurance packages that you may need. We're going to get into a bit more of a deep dive after that on specifically what helpful tips you need to deal with your E&O insurance. That is, what kind of renewal needs you may need, what kind of levies may apply, what kind of excess insurance considerations you may need, and all of these different procedural matters about starting your own firm, leaving a firm, joining a new firm, and all of those different things that we deal with, including retirement at some point. And finally, we're going to look at title insurance, which is insurance that covers both lawyer needs and their clients' needs, and Shauna Ramsey is going to get into that in a bit more detail. Now, first of all, I just want to pass this off to Victoria, who is going to start us off by talking about E&O insurance, what it covers, what it doesn't cover, and get us right into this putting the insurance puzzle together topic. So Victoria, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Sean. I'm going to start it out with a universal truth. I don't think anyone's going to fight me on this. Insurance isn't always the most fun topic. I'm just going to put it out there. But before I went into insurance, I was an estates lawyer. So I'm actually very comfortable talking about things that make other people kind of uncomfortable. And when thinking about life as an estates lawyer, I always thought a well-drafted will was a form of protection for your clients. You don't hear stories about the nightmare people face when someone dies with a good estate plan in place. What you hear about is the horror stories when they don't have a good plan in place. Having a will is just one facet of a risk management plan. And let me stress, I suggest all the lawyers in here have a good estate plan, succession plan also in place for their firms. And if you have any questions about that, there are resources on the Law Society of Ontario website that can help you think about that as well. But that's what we're not talking about. So when you're practicing, you actually have a ton of risk management tools that you have to keep track of. So having that good business continuity plan, that succession plan, that estate plan for your firm, for you, updating your intake forms and retainer letters to make sure it's clear that you know your clients and your clients know you and what it is that you can actually do for them. You have to have controls in place and training for staff that protect your firm against frauds, against people trying to impersonate clients, trying to get funds redirected to them or access to your system. You also have to keep abreast of changes in the law and best practices so that you can update your precedents and procedures. A very important part of your risk management plan, you're not going to be surprised to hear this from me, is appropriate insurance. There are a lot of things that you have to think about it when it comes to your insurance needs. Who do you want it to cover? Is it just you? Is it your staff? Is it your family members? What property needs to be covered? What perils are you facing? What exclusions and conditions might apply? Do you need to augment insurance you already have or that you're contemplating with another form of coverage? And what limits are you going to need? So the good thing is, if you're in good standing with the Law Society of Ontario, you're providing legal services to the public, then you've got LAWPRO's primary errors and omissions, E&O insurance protecting you. In general, this is $1 million per claim, $2 million across all the claims that are made against you in a given year. This coverage relates specifically to cover damages arising out of claims where the liability of the insured is the result of an error, omission, or negligent act in the performance of professional services for others. I think Cindy's already laughing because she's heard me say this 1,000 times. This is our coverage grant, and it is the bog standard wording you are always going to see in any E&O policy. What makes it E&O for lawyers is that definition of professional services. Professional services for us, it means the practice of the laws of Canada, not Quebec. Sorry, Quebec is always a different beast. Where conducted by a law society licensed lawyer in his or her capacity as a lawyer. Those services can include when a lawyer is responsible as a lawyer, but acting as a trustee or an administrator, an executor, an arbitrator, mediator, patent or trademark agent, and the list goes on. Now, sometimes when you're acting for clients, you go beyond typical legal work. Going back to my example, when I was an estates lawyer, sometimes, I'm talking with the estate trustee and they're trying to figure out what to do with the assets before the distribution. And I might give them advice on what to do with those assets during this interim period. Now, if you look at the LAWPRO, the Law Society, program policy, you're going to see that there's an exclusion in there that talks about providing investment advice. So you might think, well, Victoria, weren't you in trouble for giving them investment advice? But that exclusion says, unless as a direct consequence of the performance of professional services. As long as I wasn't acting in a conflict, holding myself out as a financial planner, this was a natural extension of my work as an estate lawyer, then this is the kind of thing that still attracts coverage when you look at the retainer as a whole. If you're working as a workplace investigator, you know that they could have hired someone who wasn't a lawyer to do that kind of work. But you also know the reason that they hired you, it's because you bring something special as a lawyer to it. They didn't just want someone to go out and gather facts and present them to them. They wanted someone who can do that, but they can also use their legal knowledge, judgment, and skill to apply it to those facts, that they can use the applicable legislation and present them with an opinion on it. That's the added benefit of hiring a lawyer to do that work. And that's what can make it a covered professional service of a lawyer under the policy. Think about all those times when, clients come in and you might notarize or commission documents for them. Maybe when you're commissioning a document, you're not actually providing, any legal services. You're not giving them any legal advice. So if you were only commissioning a document, you're not explaining any of it to them. Are those the professional services of a lawyer? Probably not. But if it's in the greater context of a real estate deal or like an estate retainer, you're looking at it in the context of the retainer as a whole. It's part of the professional services that you were providing. So going back, what's appropriate coverage? For some lawyers, the standard limits are going to be more than enough. If you don't operate a trust account, you don't have a partner, you worry about might steal the funds from the trust account, you don't work on high value transactions, and the type of files you work on don't have a long tail. You aren't expecting claims to come against you far into the future. You sleep easy at night with that primary coverage. But for others, the files that they work on might be closely tied to rising assets, real estate, businesses, tax liability. And the 1 million might not feel like it's enough, even though most of the time it probably absolutely is. If you do real estate, wills and estates, family law, tax, IP, corporate commercial, high value litigation, this is something you've probably thought about. So for peace of mind, especially if you're in a very large firm, you might think about buying excess insurance. And unlike the primary insurance, this is generally bought on a firm-wide basis. It's not insured on the individual lawyer basis like your law society primary E&O is. And the less likely you are to have excess insurance limits actually touched because you're doing such an amazing job of not having claims or the types of transactions you work on are low value enough that it's just so unlikely that it would ever breach that $1 million limit. This is going to reduce your premiums for that excess insurance because they're knowing that, they're sleepy, easy coverage. They're not likely to actually be called on. And so that reduces the premium that you're probably going to have to pay for it. Excess insurance, like other ones that I'm about to talk about, they can be purchased from a slew of insurers. But unlike the other ones I'm going to talk about, I have to say that LawPro actually does offer excess insurance to most small law firms in Ontario. Okay, so now we're going to talk about other firm risk, because excess E&O is just one of the types of insurance that you should probably talk about with an insurance professional. So if you have an actual office space, you might need to think about general liability insurance in case anyone, is injured on site. This can often be bundled with a policy that protects your firm's properties and assets in the case of fire or other damage. You might have heard this called commercial general liability or CGL policies. Included in this, they might have something called valuable papers coverage. And so now everything's so virtual, but at your office, you probably still have important papers that are costly or difficult to replace. And that's what this is supposed to come and help you with. You might also want to think about having some kind of crime coverage. Under the LawPro primary policy, there is some limited crime coverage to protect the innocent members of the firm from bad apples, but it's not going to be as comprehensive as a dedicated crime coverage. It's a little add-on for an E&O policy. It's not a dedicated crime coverage. If your firm is larger, you're probably thinking about directors and officers insurance for the decision makers in the firm, or employment practices liability insurance in case you ever face an unfair treatment complaint that can be raised by employees or potential hires. And then, of course, there's the hot topic of cyber and privacy insurance. Under the policy, there is limited cybercrime coverage, but it addresses what happens when your clients suffer a loss, not when you suffer a loss. We call this third-party coverage. A dedicated cyber policy can address risks like replacing computers that have been bricked. And for those of you who are not in the area, imagine that your computer has become so useless, it is practically a brick. That's what bricking is. Or getting your systems cleaned and wiped after you've had some kind of intrusion, or paying your ransom costs if a bad actor takes control of your systems, paying your business interruption costs if you're not able to work or if it's closed down your ability to do anything for an extended period. These and other first-party losses, they can be pretty significant. But having great insurance available doesn't replace having great risk controls in place. Social engineering is the #1 cyber threat right now, but it's often not offered under cyber policies or can be very expensive to obtain. Bad actors know firms move funds around on a regular basis, and they want to insert themselves in the middle of that. And while LawPro might cover some examples of social engineering, it's not the same as a dedicated coverage. Now, taking off my underwriter hat and putting on my purchaser hat, because I buy insurance like the rest of you guys. As a purchaser of insurance, take it from me. If you can't show in your application for cyber insurance that you have controls in place to protect yourself, you either aren't going to be able to get insurance at all or not for a reasonable price. Things they're going to want to know include things like multi-factor authentication if you work remotely, firewalls, encryption, controls around how you verify fund transfer instructions with banks, clients, or other service providers. Some people say just going through the application process leads to better safety measures. Seeing the expectations that are placed on firms alerts you to what you need to do to safeguard your clients and the other firm members. For those of you who buy the CGL policies, this might remind you of those questions about having boxes or furniture obscuring fire exits and how you made sure everyone in the office kept those doors cleared so you wouldn't lose a good price on your insurance. This is the same kind of thing, just on steroids. The good news is there is help available. I've already talked about how, the Law Society has some resources around, succession planning or making sure that you've got a backup plan. Who's going to actually step in and take care of your files if suddenly you can't work on your files, especially for small firm lawyers. I highly, highly recommend that you have a look at the materials. LawPro and its risk management arm, Practice Pro, that Sean talked about, have a ton of free resources to help you navigate through a lot of these issues. From resources that talk about the usual types of insurance, some of the ones I already talked about, some more that are on offer, to healthy practices to put in place to better safeguard your firm from known perils. There are a ton of precedents, tools, and articles that can help answer most any question you have, and it'll help you better manage risks for your firm. And when it comes to knowing who to approach with your insurance questions and needs, you probably have more resources than you think. Everyone viewing today probably has had or they have an existing relationship with an insurance advisor, or you qualify for preferential affiliation pricing through at a university alumni program, or your membership in a trade group or like the CBA. These organizations have partnered with insurers because they're able to throw a lot of business towards the insurers, so they get a really good rate for all of the people who go with it. And if you're not happy with the way that your account is being handled right now, or you don't feel that the advisor you have at the moment is helping you understand your risks or presenting you with solutions, then maybe it's time to talk to someone else. You've got the resources available to you. So I have talked a lot about the surface level of ways to better manage your practice risks, but I do not know nearly as much in the broader picture as Catherine here does. So I'm going to pass it over to her to discuss this a bit more.
Thank you, Victoria. And very interesting topic. Excellent handover. I do appreciate that. So what I'll do, everybody, again, I'm Catherine McKay-Pretty from Lawyers Financial, part of the CBIA, Canadian Bar Insurance Association. I do have a few slides, which I thought might be a little bit more visually appealing to look at than just hearing myself in particular dialogue. So what I'll do is I'll just share my screen. So what I would like to do, everybody, and again, thank you for your time this morning. Lawyers Financial, we are a robust insurance provider specifically for the legal community, for those of you who don't know us, through the CBIA. And what we do is provide, and this is, I think, one time that you will actually like hearing the word, pro bono. We do provide complimentary or free consulting to lawyers, legal community in all aspects of insurance coverage, financial planning, pensions, wealth management as well, and a financial planning team, as well as a complete suite of insurance coverage. So what I would like to do under the guise of Insurance 101 is just briefly provide all of the options and benefits that you and lawyers and your law firm and staff have available to you at any time. So, and again, this is just a little bit of an overview. What I've tried to do is just disseminate it in terms of what can be split between your personal and corporate, because as a lawyer or someone working in the law community, you have several hats that you're wearing. Obviously, your career, you're a lawyer, you might even be a partner or thinking about opening up your own firm. And then as well, it is you, the individual. You have personal goals, personal risks, a family to look after. So, and we do recognize that you do have different needs. So what I've done is just try to disseminate a little bit of the options, understanding that, you know, there's lots of areas of discussion. This is just a little bit of an overview. When it comes to insurance, I think most people automatically go to the thought of home and auto insurance, term insurance, life insurance, or disability insurance, and those are the foundations. All of these products or solutions, they're just meant to be part of a larger strategy, because as we go through our career, our lifespan, our time horizon, our needs change. So these products are meant to be customized, not a one size fits all, but customized to your risk. And when I say risk, it's risk of your mortality. What happens? We will all pass away. There's a 100% guarantee of that. But what happens when it comes at a time that we're not expecting? when we have a lot of dependents who rely on us, a lot of debt, a lot of mortgages, and career obligations. This is the conversations we have with you to help prioritize the level of risk and where you should be focusing, putting some extra effort in terms of insurance coverage and mitigation. Disability income, critical illness, and then what is also embedded through insurance is wealth. Growing wealth through insurance privately as an individual member in your family or corporately. And this can be done through insurance products. And then, of course, discussing waterfall strategies. Would you like to leave money tax-free to your family, build some wealth, intergenerational wealth within your family, or corporate? Would you like to build some wealth within your corporation so you have some assets on the books, so that you have some dividends to give to your shareholders at the end of the year, so that you can build an executive planning or an equalization strategy when you exit your firm? Is there enough excess funds within the corporation where you can sell the corporation or retire? These are all things that we can help you with using the simple products of life insurance. And as well, we do have health benefits. So if there's an area where you're working for a firm and you may or may not have health benefits, you can certainly look at this option through Lawyers Financial privately. Or if you are in a firm and you would like to bring in health benefits as a ways and means of providing extra benefits for your partners and for your staff, this is something we can also assist with as well. And these products are available. What I did was just take a sort of a little bit of a glance of all of the products and just try to socialize it across an average person's life horizon, career horizon, and some of the concepts of insurance products. This may seem like a lot of products. This isn't meant to be overwhelming, but it's meant to begin a conversation of where do you have the most risk? Where do we need to have a conversation? Is there a higher risk of illness within your family? And of course, disability that we need to cover your income on, and term life, of course, some of the basic products. And embedded in that, as I spoke before, is the opportunity for investments, while they're registered or unregistered investments, that you can work with us here at Lawyers Financial. But investments can also be embedded in, as I spoke before, insurance products, a permanent life product, where you can grow wealth tax deferred while it's growing inside the policy, and create some strategy around that. So this is really just meant to be how you would approach considering the different options of the various insurance products, and where they're really most impactful to have. And of course, disability insurance, which is also called income protection, is very important, along with critical illness, because we're so reliant on our income stream. As we know, our debt ratio, this was just on the news, our debt ratio in Canada is one of the highest rated in the G7. And we do know our debt ratio is I think we're at 1.8 now. So we are heavily burdened as Canadians in terms of debt. We do need protection around our income. If we can't work, most Canadians simply cannot go 2, 3, 4 months without a paycheck. So that's where these type of policies come into play: the disability policy, critical illness, if we become sick and can't work, and investments as well. Having the flexibility to choose investments that are registered or non-registered, where we can pull out funds and help reinvest in ourselves, in our career over our time frame. And then, of course, other types of insurance, travel, and health and dental. So this is just a little bit of an overview of where you should be looking at these products, how they come into play, and the types of discussions that you can have with us here. And of course, the term life, very, very important product. This one I do like to call out because it's a very flexible product. You can do so much with the term life, own it corporately. For example, a collateral assignment. If you're becoming a partner in a firm, you may have to take out a term life policy. And then, of course, privately, we always suggest you have term life used personally as collateral. buy it personally, not through the lender. Lots of benefits as to why, because you actually own the payout, the capital payout of term life. And of course, with life insurance, if you assign it to a beneficiary, not your estate, I know I'm speaking to lawyers, you do understand the implications there. You want that 100% tax-free payout to your beneficiary. So term life offers a lot of flexibility as well as conversion opportunities throughout your lifespan to convert portions of the capital or the death benefit value into a permanent life product as well, which could be very enticing if you've developed a critical illness over your career or lifespan, which may make underwriting a little bit more difficult. On the corporate side of where we come into providing solutions for lawyers and law firms, again, is some of the key elements, very basic insurance products that do a lot of things. A term life insurance product may seem very simple, for example, pays out on our immediate debts, our mortgage, obligations to children, outstanding loans, but they're also used for, again, a little bit more complex collateral assignments, buying into a firm as a partnership. This is where we can come in to play and create a policy for you. If it's a permanent life product, these policies can be used corporately for wealth, where we can embed some strategies in there where there's wealth growing tax deferred. And again, we work with you either individually or corporately in your career to understand what's the best policy to help with mitigate some taxes. Where are you going to get the best benefit? And if you are looking to develop your corporation, this is an area where definitely I say, let's have a conversation, because you can grow wealth within your corporation. Buy-sell fund agreements, these are done where, for example, you've worked on your career, you've created a partnership, and you want to make sure that your succession planning, your future partners are buying into the corporation. It's not left to somebody else that you may or may not want having a say within your company. Key person insurance, this is a very popular protection. This is a corporate protection policy where, especially as a lawyer, if you are instrumental in driving the revenue, driving the talent, if you are essentially a key person within the corporation, and should you become disabled or even pass away, the corporation is at extreme risk, key person insurance would be taken out and owned corporately. So it basically ensures succession planning on the demise, or if we're missing that key person within the company, there is some stability there through an insurance policy on the corporate side. Business overhead expense insurance. This is a policy, it falls under the disability category, but business overhead expense essentially pays the fixed overhead costs of your company as a lawyer, your firm. Should you become disabled, again, the key people who are instrumental in driving the revenue, then what it does is it steps in and helps pay those fixed overhead costs so that the business, in some ways and means, isn't as interrupted. The business can keep going. Term life, and as well, we have staff programs. So understanding that you spent a lot of time, obviously, developing your firm, your career, you've incorporated, you've invested in yourself and your company, your firm, we do offer staff programs. So this would be pensions, group health benefits, allowing them, enabling your staff, either in a group plan or outside of a group plan, to opt into some of our programs. So it's a way of giving your staff obviously benefits, but attracting talent too into your company, into your firm as well. Pensions we do have, and this is a defined benefit pension plan. So this is something that law firms can look at, or if you are a solo and incorporated, there are some areas where you can opt into this plan as well. And then we do have the office insurance program. So this program, which I will talk about a little bit in detail. Again, this is just a 101 coverage summary that's available to you, but please frame all of this in terms of there is a whole suite of solutions for you, not just as an individual, but as a lawyer, a law firm, or even if you are considering a growth plan, you would like to be somewhere within a firm or grow a firm within a few years, have the conversations now so that you can map out a plan of the programs and the coverages that are most relevant to you as you grow within your career. And here's just a nice little roadmap I did, and really it's just around business planning and really understanding that you as the individual, you as the lawyer, again, you wear many hats and you are essentially two people. You're the private person and you are the lawyer. So there's a lot of personal planning that I always say, let's get this looked after first. Your risk management, what happens on your death? Your premature death that you're not planning for. And we talk about things like how this folds into conversations within your will, succession planning and estate planning, the impact of disability and critical illness to your income stream, and retirement planning. Right at day one, as soon as you enter your career, you should be thinking about retirement planning and taking advantage of that compounding growth within the retirement plan, and using insurance with that wealth that grows inside of it in your permanent plans as part of your retirement planning strategy. So these are the conversations we will have with you. And then, of course, your other goals, what's important to you, because we take direction from you. We will give you the best advice, the best solutions, and help you prioritize. But essentially, we need to know what's important to you personally and professionally. Then you will enter the invest stage, your business continuation planning, some of the products I talked about before, the key person, buy-sell agreements, business overhead, and executive benefit planning. These are sort of the stages, the common stages that you'll go through. So to help prioritize the types of conversations you would have and when you would have them within your career, this is just a little map. And then hopefully we get you to growth. You're in a phase of your career where you are not just investing hard work and, of course, investment dollars and capital into yourself and your company, but you're growing. And this is where we start talking about your ownership, your succession planning, transitions, products and wealth products, insurance products that help with the buy-sell agreements, that help you know that you're going to ease out in 20, 15, 10 years into retirement. And then, of course, as you start getting closer to retirement, it's really that maturity stage. And then we start talking about, you've made it. What can we do with what you've already grown? What would you like to do when you sell? Would you like to start talking about equalization, selling off, retirement strategies, philanthropy, and really tax mitigations, how we can help you transition from your career to maybe you're going to phase out to career. And some of our products help you do that with the disability products, you can work up to age 71. And then what does life look like for you after 71? Will you keep working? Where do you want to be? So these are some of a little bit of a roadmap. Don't need to drill down too much, but there is some mindfulness in terms of when to start having these conversations, because it can be overwhelming. And talking about your death, obviously, can be very overwhelming, very emotional. And it doesn't have to be a conversation that is hard to have. This is one where we can help disseminate and understand, based off of your needs, where do you need to focus on now? Because focusing on everything will be overwhelming. And then what I've experienced is people just shut down. So we'll break it down into small layers of, here's some of the most important risk management strategies for you personally, corporately, and where to kind of take on small amounts throughout your career so that you're not overwhelmed, but you do have the comfort level that you have some risk strategies in place. And then as part of that support that we give to you, again, just a little bit of details around the health benefit plan. If you're self-employed, you're a solo lawyer, you can opt in for a private plan with us. Or if you're a member of a small firm, retired, we have different plans for your various stages of your career and where you are. And of course, within each of those plans, there would be various and customized coverages, prescription drugs, paramedical services, hospitals, additional dental, and basics like that. So that is available to you. And what I would like to do is just take a second. There's a little QR code there that I put just out of ease, because I think most people are probably watching this on a computer. So if take a second, pick up your phone and take a picture of the QR code, save that. That'll actually take you to the full detailed suite of the health plan. Of course, you can contact Lawyers Financial after, but if you are interested, I just did the courtesy of embedding that right now. And a little bit about office insurance. So this is something that contact Lawyers Financial. Of course, all of us are specialized in various areas of insurance and financial advisory, like myself. But I can share that Lawyers Financial does offer. So if you contact me, we will get you there. Some coverages for, which I know is very important, once you've graduated to owning a firm or incorporating, and of course, if you are working from home, there is some crime coverage, business interruption coverage, content, general liability coverage. So it's protection, whether you're in the office or working from your kitchen table. There's lots of solutions for you through Lawyers Financial. And a little bit of breakdown of what is covered: cyber security, of course, damage to actual chattels, computers, electronics, documents, fraud, employee theft, and umbrella liability. So again, a whole suite of coverages through Lawyers Financial, through the CBIA, is available. And for this program, what I did, again, top right-hand corner, I just embedded for a courtesy a link right to this program. So if you guys just want to take a picture with your phone, I'll leave that up there just for a second, and that'll get you to it. And that's more details there about that program. So really, it's a lot of information about insurance. Insurance, I think, is a massive word. It's a mega word that covers a lot. But what we will do is help, again, disseminate the balance between what you need individually, your goals, your desires, your hopes, your retirement strategies, immediate needs, and of course, health issues, what the implications to that for insurance coverage in your family. Balance that with what everybody wants is tax mitigation. What's the best products that help offset the best tax situations throughout your career and your retirement? And then again, balance your career, knowing that you may want to reinvest dollars and have that cash flow so you can invest in products for your career and your firm. But there's an X amount of dollars to go around. Everybody is cognizant of that. So again, the conversation that we would provide to you, again, pro bono, would be what are your top key desires? What is it that you want to tackle within the next 2, 5, 10 years? What is your biggest risks? And we create a priority plan, because it's not reasonable to say you need everything all at once. That's just not reasonable. So these plans are meant to work, to tie in, to wind down, to flow out, so that we transition you to the right product and coverage. And really, it's a transition. We work with you on that, as opposed to saying, this is what you need and walk away. That's not the approach we have. The approach is really customized. It's flexible. It will work in harmony with other products. And again, managing your budget and the stress levels and the expectations that you have as an independent lawyer running a firm. These are all of the services we will provide to you. So if you are interested to speak with me directly, that's my meeting link there. If anybody is interested, you can just click and move there to meet with me. And a little bit about myself, but I think Sean had presented me. I have been around for a while, financial advisor, and I have a lot of what I've known is a lot of unique activities, but I have found that there are a lot of lawyers out there who play hockey and are goalies. So if you're one of them, book a meeting. I'd love to have a coffee chat with you. So that's a little bit about the suite through Lawyers Financial, the end-to-end, very, very robust products that we have for you. And please reach out or ask questions. Love to be able to answer some questions.
Thanks so much, Catherine. I'm just going to step in here now and remind everyone that if you do have questions, you can put them into the question and answer box for the program. We already have a few questions, so if Catherine and Victoria have a little bit of time here, we're going to try to answer a few of them. A few others might be addressed by the second half of the program that we're going to get to soon. But just to start off, Catherine, I know we actually have a couple of people asking about more information on key person insurance. I know you touched on that briefly as part of the packages that they can learn more about at Lawyers Financial. But if they wanted to specifically learn more about key person insurance, where would you direct them?
Yep, for key person insurance, come directly to me. First and foremost, so Lawyers Financial, come to us. You can come to me first as a primary, and what we would do is have a conversation specifically around your role, what specifically you do, the implications to your firm, and then provide sort of obviously a quote, and then plan out, the level of coverage that you would require. But first and foremost would be directly with me through Lawyers Financial.
And Catherine, actually, we also have a couple of questions specifically from people who would like to have a copy of your slides. I know there was some really great information on there. If you're willing, certainly those can be put on the practicepro.ca page for this program, and that could be downloaded at a future date. So hopefully that will be available at that time. And there's another question here, Catherine, that says, do you have to be a member of CBIA to use Lawyers Financial or to get any kind of discount? Does that tie into what lawyers need to do in order to get this kind of insurance, or talk to you about that?
Right. So most of the lawyers actually, or the firms that we work with, are a member of the CBIA. So if they're not, what we do require is that you are a lawyer, have been called to the bar, you are practicing as a lawyer within the community, and specifically, your firm, or you are a staff member of a law firm. So kind of like arm's length. And then as well, I would like to say, if you are a lawyer, your family has some arm's length opportunity to our products as well. So some of the product variations change it, but just being called to the bar here within well, specifically, I guess this is an Ontario location, should suffice.
Great. And Victoria, I have a couple of questions for you as well. We actually have two related questions here. The first asks, to what extent does this insurance cover a lawyer who's practicing in other provinces except Quebec when they're not called to the bar in that province? And then there is a question for the flip side that says, what are the insurance options for people who are not in Ontario, foreign legal consultants that want to practice in Canada and give advice because they can't get that insurance from LAWPRO?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked about mobility. I love to talk about it. Nobody likes to listen to me in my house. So there are two kinds of mobility. You're asking about temporary mobility. The other one is permanent mobility, and this is where you might be called in Ontario. You're also called in BC. And we've worked out a way so that you only have to pay for insurance in one of those places, but you've got coverage in both. What you're asking about is temporary mobility, that ability to go to another province, work there for up to 100 days with or without a permit from, let's say, Alberta, and have your Ontario policy cover you. So the way temporary mobility works, it's under these mobility agreements that the Federation of Law Societies came up with. It doesn't apply to the territories. Quebec is, again, a different beast, so I'm not going to go there. So think about the common law provinces. That's what we're really talking about. For the most part, you're able to work those 100 days in another province. You might or might not need a permit. You're going to have to talk to the other law society about that. So for example, if you've got any discipline proceedings in Ontario, it might mean that you need to get a permit in order to do that temporary work in this other province. The good news is we cover you for that temporary work. And it even gets better than that. So let's say that you've got a claim in Alberta for the 100 days that you were working there, and the Ontario policy has an exclusion, let's say, that applies to a claim that's brought against you. But the Alberta policy for the Alberta lawyers doesn't have an exclusion for that thing. We'll broaden our coverage to match Alberta. Conversely, if Alberta would have excluded that, but we would have covered it, we'll cover it. It's whichever is the broader, you get the benefit of it. So that's really the secret to temporary mobility. We've got some resources about that on the LawPro website. But if you're have any questions about your ability to actually work in the other province, you can actually even work there more than 100 days, but you have to get a permit if you're going to be there more than 100 days. Talk to the other law society about it. The foreign legal consultants question. So it does get a little confusing because if you look at the Law Society page on that, it says that the coverage has to match LawPro, and then it shoots you over to our website. It's just to let you know that it has to be $1 million per claim, 2 million the aggregate, that kind of thing. So you can get it from the commercial market. There are a ton of brokers that you can talk to about this. They used to list them on the Law Society website, but people would change what they offer, so it was hard to keep it current, so they stopped being able to put it on there. What I would suggest is that if you talk to whoever your office insurer is, they'll be able to direct you the right way. Otherwise, talk to the Hubs, the Marshes, one of the big brokers, and they'll be able to help you out there.
Okay, Victoria, and one other quick question that hopefully has a very quick answer. One person just asked if you could just give a very big picture distinction to explain the difference between LawPro, CBI Lawyers Financial, and what they cover, as well as other brokers, and kind of what the different options available from these different providers are.
Great. Well, LawPro acts as a direct insurer with you. You contract directly with us and we take care of you. And that's for the primary E&O, that's for the excess. And we'll hear a little bit about title insurance later on. The nice thing about working with a broker, though, is that, they'll help you with your applications and they might send it off to a slew of different insurers to try to get you the best price on something. Or they might know the only one who's able to provide you with this type of insurance is that exact insurer. And so, the CBIA, the Lawyers Financial, what they have is that kind of affiliation pricing we talked about for lawyers. But for the most part, you're probably going to be dealing with a broker in order to have those, kind of comprehensive services if you're getting a bunch of different products.
Great.
Catherine,
Okay.
did you want to add anything to that?
Yep, no, that's excellent. And again, the advantage of the affiliate program is, as opposed to outside brokers, we've actually customized the coverage specifically for lawyers. So all of that dissemination work has been done. It's done for lawyers, and it's a pooled resources of just lawyers. So there's a benefit there in terms of the products and the pricing as well. But in terms of products, the differentiation is think of life, critical illness, disability, business, the business concepts that I talked about, wealth, investments, financial planning, and pension. So think of it really more in the money and the insurance side. That would be, I think, high level, the differentiation between the two.
Great. So I'm going to pass this on to Cindy Ramos now, who is going to talk more specifically about managing your E&O insurance and answer questions about things like what do you do when you're going towards retirement, what kind of runoff insurance you might need in addition to what is already being offered by LawPro, and everything else that you need to know about your E&O insurance. So Cindy, I hand it to you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here today. So I'm actually just going to go over a few tips on managing your insurance, and I've prepared a few slides to go over this information for you. So bear with me a moment. All right. So we all know insurance can be very confusing, and enter into the mix liability insurance. And this is where LawPro comes in. So many of you have to contact LawPro to fulfill your liability insurance needs. And in today's presentation here, a list of the things that we'll be discussing. So first off, we'll start off with deductibles and premium surcharges. So deductibles is always a bit of a confusing topic. So LawPro offers two types of deductibles. We have those that are applicable to claims expenses, indemnity payments, and/or costs of repairs together. And the other type is the deductibles that apply to indemnity payments and costs of repairs only. For the first type, 50% of this deductible amount is generally payable for investigation and defense expenses when a statement of defense or responding material is filed. The other 50% of the damages amount for investigation, defense expenses due or incurred at the time of commencement, when examination begins, or once a pretrial conference is held. Any outstanding deductible amount left is generally applied to judgments, settlements, and/or cost of repairs when expenditure is due. Now, for the next type of deductibles, the indemnity payments and/or cost of repairs only, these applies to judgments, settlements, and/or cost of repairs to the extent of the deductible amount when the judgment, settlement, or cost of repair expenditure is due. Now we enter into claims history levy surcharge. So the claims history levy surcharge, that's generally applied to claims which result in LAWPRO having to make a payment as a result of a judgment or a settlement on a claim or a repair. The surcharge is not triggered simply by you reporting a claim or potential claim. So no need to be afraid to report that claim or potential claim to LAWPRO. Now, this is payable over a period of 5 consecutive years during which you've been a practicing lawyer. So that is also important to know. So example is, let's say there is a claim history surcharge that has been triggered on your policy. You've been paying that for 2 years. You decided to go on an exemption for the next 2 years. Once you return, the levy surcharge will resume. Renewal. So this is also a very popular topic. The renewal period commences on or about October 1st each year. This date has not changed, so you want to make sure to diarize this on your calendar. For those of you that will have no changes, LAWPRO do offer a one-click renewal. So this allows you to just simply click review the information and just submit it to us. If you are making changes to your coverage, there is a pre-populated electronic form that is available in the My LAWPRO section of our website. Filing deadlines for application, that's typically around November 8th. Now this date for this year is still tentative. And of course, it will be subject to strictly enforced surcharges. What are these surcharges? So if the filing is received late, so anywhere between November 8th to December 1st, there is a $350 surcharge. Anytime after December 1st or not received at all, that surcharge will increase to $600. Now, LAWPRO will not be automatically mailing out paper application forms. However, if you would like to receive a pre-populated copy of the form, you can download this from our website. You can find this under the Primary Policy Documents tab, and this will be available on or about October 1st. So managing your levy filings and exemptions. So a common question is, do I have to file levy forms if I do not practice civil litigation? So for lawyers who do not practice in the area of real estate or civil litigation, you can file transaction levy exemption filings. These are not done quarterly. It is done on an annual basis. However, you want to ensure that these filings are remitted to LAWPRO by April 30th. Another question that we do receive is, I practice only criminal and or immigration law. Do I still need to file transaction levies? So in the past, the answer to that would have been yes. However, for 2023, LAWPRO decided to change things up a bit by introducing the automatic exemptions from transaction levy filing requirements for those lawyers that are on the restricted area of practice. So you can certify on your renewal application that you are restricting your practice to criminal and or immigration law. Likewise, for those of you that are submitting firm filings on behalf of the members of your firm, you can indicate this on the renewal application as well. When are your levy filings payable? So the real estate and civil litigation transaction levies, those are accumulated and they're payable quarterly within 30 days of the quarter ending period. So on the last day of March, June, September, and December. And I've actually just prepared a little chart here for you to see the actual deadline date. So on January 31st, the civil litigation and real estate levy filings are due for the fourth quarter of the previous year. On November 30th, the real estate and civil litigation quarterly levy filings are due for the first quarter of the current year, as well as the annual exemption forms from civil litigation and or and real estate for 2023 or the current year that you're in is also due on that date. July 31st, this would be the filing deadline date for your second quarter levies from real estate and civil litigation. And October 31st would be the deadline date for your third quarter filing from civil litigation and real estate. Next up, so for individual lawyers that are changing firms, what happens to your LawPro coverage when you leave a firm? So for this, no need to be afraid. Your insurance coverage does not stop when you leave a firm. So the coverage applies to the individual lawyer, and it's not limited to any one firm. So when you leave a firm, your coverage will follow you. All we require is an email, which you will send to service@lawpro.ca with your full name, law society number, your last day worked at your previous firm, the start date at the new firm, and your full contact details and desired billing instructions for the payment of your premiums. For firms, lawyers joining your firm from another firm, we simply require an email with the lawyer's name, law society number, effective date, full contact information, and again, the desired billing instructions for premium payment. If a lawyer leaves your firm, again, we require that email with similar information, the lawyer's name, law society number, the effective date that they're leaving, any forwarding information if it is available, and any instructions for discontinuing or refunding the premium payments. So for those of you that are considering starting your own solo firm, here are a few things that you need to do about LawPro. So the first step is notifying LawPro, and you would do this by sending an email to service@lawpro.ca with the following information: your full name and law society number, the effective date that you intend to practice in your new firm, and any changes to your contact information, including your mailing address, email address, telephone number, and fax numbers. Next would be your coverage changes, so deductibles. If you were previously at a firm where your deductible options were the same as the other members of the firm, you may want to change your deductible. To do this, you will need to complete a midterm changes form. For premium payments, if your premiums were previously paid by your former firm, you will need to complete a premium payment authorization form, and this can be found in the My LawPro section of our website to update your payment details. Next up would be the area of law. So criminal and/or immigration only. So if you will only be practicing in the areas of criminal and/or immigration, you can claim the restricted area of practice option. To do so, you will need to complete a midterm changes form. This is also available in the My LawPro section of our website. Once this is added, you don't need to file transaction levies, as there is that automatic exemption. For civil litigation and/or real estate, so if you do intend to practice in the area of real estate, you will need to apply for the real estate practice coverage option. There is an application form for that, so you will need to contact LawPro to obtain that. For both civil litigation and real estate practitioners, you will need to diarize the deadline date with respect to your transaction levy filings. So if you will not be practicing any real estate or civil litigation, please be sure to file your transaction levy exemptions. This can be done on our website at lawpro.ca. Also, you can, there is a pre-populated form you can print and return to us. Next up would be payment arrangements. So if you would like to pay by credit card or installments, then you will need to complete a premium payment authorization form and remit that to us. To pay lump sum by check, you would simply respond to the invoice that you will receive once we've processed your firm change. And final step would be renew. So your insurance coverage requires an annual renewal, so please be sure to diarize the October 1st date and ensure that you file your insurance renewal within the deadline dates. And just for your information, a copy of this can be found on our website under the Your Policy tab. there is a section for starting your own solo firm. Starting your own multi-member firm. So here's what you need to do with respect to LawPro. Again, notify LawPro in writing. So the partner who will be responsible for handling the LawPro filings for the firm should be sending an email to service@lawpro.ca with the following information: the firm name and contact information, the names and law society numbers of all of the lawyers in the firm, and we will follow up with you and provide you with the capability to submit the filings online. Step 2 would be firm changes. So deductibles and restricted area of practice. So if all of the members in the firm are going to be practicing in a restricted area of practice, you also need to ensure that no one is unrestricted. So if your firm is an LLP or a professional corporation or a general partnership, all the lawyers in the firm must have the same coverage options. So deductibles must match along with the area of practice. To change any of these options, we will require completed midterm changes forms. Again, the form is available online. Now, you can take advantage of the restricted area of practice discount if you do intend to practice criminal and/or immigration law only. Payment arrangement. So the complete, we will require a completed premium payment authorization form for the firm members. So if you will be paying the premiums on behalf of all of the members in the firm, you would complete the form and simply indicate the names of the lawyers to whom the payment method applies. If there are any lawyers that will be paying their own premiums, they will need to log into their individual account and file a premium payment authorization form. Transaction levy filings. So for criminal and/or immigration only, if all of the lawyers in the firm will be practicing only criminal and/or immigration law, they can file a restricted area of practice discount by completing the midterm changes form. There will be no need to file transaction levies. For civil litigation and real estate, if any of the lawyers in your firm will be practicing real estate, they will be required to obtain the real estate practice coverage option. Again, they'll need to contact LawPro to obtain the required form. Both civil litigation and real estate practitioners, of course, will need to ensure that the transaction levies are filed. Sometimes I do know firms designate this job to either the firm administrator or the managing partner would do this on behalf of the lawyers. So please ensure you make note of those filing deadline dates. If a lawyer is not practicing either real estate or civil litigation, they can apply for the transaction levy exemption, and that is done annually. And finally, renew. So we can't stress this enough. To avoid any of those surcharges, please ensure that you renew the insurance on or about October 1st within the deadline date. LawPro generally sends out notifications shortly before renewal opens and during the entire renewal period. So some additional information on insurance coverage and starting a firm. So does your firm need excess insurance when you're starting your firm? So the excess coverage, it's an optional coverage and it is available to lawyers that are in private practice or on exemption. It provides that additional layer of insurance protection should your defense and indemnity payments exceed the limits of your standard insurance policy. Now, excess insurance is available through LawPro. However, there are other commercial providers out there. Does your firm need cyber coverage? So your LawPro policy actually offers you a limited amount of cyber coverage. That's actually $250,000. However, we would urge you to review this information in the policy booklet under endorsement 14. What to do when retiring. So obviously, I mean, this takes a lot of planning. So here are a few things that you do need to do with respect to your LawPro. So if you're planning on retiring, and for example, we're going to use January 1st, 2024, you must complete an application for exemption, not the insurance renewal application. If you will be retiring partway through the policy year in 2024, you will file your insurance renewal application form, and then subsequently you will file an exemption form much closer to your retirement date. Now, once LAWPRO receives the completed exemption form, you will be reimbursed for any insurance premium, and that is prorated to the actual date of your retirement, limited to a 30-day period immediately preceding LAWPRO's receipt of your completed application. For those of you that will be carrying real estate coverage, please note that any requests for exemptions are not backdated. Standard runoff coverage. So what coverage would you have upon retirement? So you will have a maximum of $250,000 per claim, and in the aggregate for runoff insurance for any claims brought against you. Innocent partner coverage is included as part of your free standard runoff coverage of $250,000. This coverage limit is there to protect you against any claims that are made against you once you leave private practice for the dishonest, malicious, criminal, or fraudulent acts of a former partner or associate. Now, there is no charge for the standard runoff policy, and to apply, we simply need to receive an exemption form. There's no coverage for professional services that is provided during any period of exemption. So we do want to stress that. And to qualify for the exemption, you cannot engage in the practice of law in Ontario, and that is subjected to a few exceptions, which is pro bono services that are provided through a pro bono professional service program associated with Pro Bono Ontario, and you can find that list available on our website. Certain services as estate trustee or a trustee for inter vivos trusts or attorney for property. Certain mentoring services provided pursuant to LAWPRO's approved risk management protocol. And finally, clinics that are funded by Legal Aid Ontario. Increased runoff insurance. So this coverage is optional. And basically what it is, it's an optional coverage that is available to lawyers who only have the standard runoff coverage, but you'd like to increase that coverage limit. Now, you can increase the limits to $500,000 per claim in the aggregate, or to $1 million per claim, $2 million in the aggregate. Innocent partner buy-up can be increased to those limits as well. Excess insurance may also be purchased for an additional layer of protection above the $1 million per claim, $2 million in the aggregate coverage. What are the coverage terms, you asked? So the terms range from 2 to 5 years. And with respect to coverage for residual work, so you may apply to include coverage for services as an estate trustee, trustee for inter vivos trust, or attorney for property after you leave private practice. However, it's important to note that your role as trustee or attorney for property must be residual work from your past practice in Ontario, not the case where you have been only named since leaving private practice. Now, the premium for this coverage, because it is individually underwritten, we don't actually have an actual premium upfront. So we will need to receive the application form, and it will be reviewed by an underwriter. There are several factors that are taken into consideration. One thing to note that for first-time applicants, you should apply at least 60 days before the coverage begins to avoid any gaps in coverage limits. So there is a 60-day waiting period. So just to give you an example, if you intend on retiring, let's say first day of retirement is going to be January 1, 2024, we need to receive your application as of November 1st to avoid there being any gaps in terms of coverage. During that time, you can choose to either go on a standard exemption if you go over January 1st during the waiting period, or you can choose to maintain your professional liability insurance policy in the interim until the 60-day waiting period is up and you transition over to increased runoff insurance. Now, if you are going to be doing the latter, then you will need to file an insurance renewal application form.
Cindy, I think we actually have a couple of questions here about retirement. Do you mind if I pose a couple to you right at this time here?
Of course.
So we have a question on retirement that says, how long does LAWPRO provide coverage for existing files, and does it cover the lawyer's estate? I'm not sure if that was explicitly covered in what you said, but if you could just confirm that at this time.
Okay, so with respect to the standard runoff coverage, this here is only, the coverage limit is $250,000, and it is there until it's exhausted. So it's there indefinitely until it's exhausted. Now, standard runoff coverage, it covers you or the lawyer for any services that they provided in the past in their capacity as a lawyer. And likewise, the increased runoff insurance is an extension of that.
And then I guess just a follow up to that, is there any kind of time limit for when you have to apply for increased runoff coverage when you're heading into retirement?
Right. So because there is that 60-day waiting period, the LAWPRO does recommend that you apply 60 days prior to your retirement date to avoid any gaps in coverage limit.
Okay. Now, I know you do have a little bit more in your presentation, Cindy, but I want to make sure we get to Shauna, who's going to talk about title insurance. So if it's all right, I'm actually just going to pass it off to her for now, and then hopefully we can come back at the end and answer any outstanding questions. Does that work?
Certainly. No problem.
Okay. Thanks so much, Cindy. Shauna, I pass it off to you.
Great. Thank you, Sean. So last but not least, I get to talk to you today about title insurance, and I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about Title Plus as well. I guess just to start, a policy of title insurance is available not only for purchasers as well as mortgage lenders, but it is also available for existing homeowners, which is very important with fraud becoming such a big issue these days. Now, a policy of insurance is not easy to read. It doesn't matter if it's title insurance or any other policy of insurance, and they're also not easy to navigate. So I thought it might be a good idea to start there. So the first area of real importance in a title insurance policy is the covered risks section. And there's a variety of title defects, compliance risks that are covered in that section. And the first sort of category that I would refer to is something that I like to call survey coverage. So that would provide coverage for things like encroachments, setback deficiencies, expropriation, and structures that are not actually located on the land itself. You've also got coverage for issues that may have come to light if an off-title search had been done. So that would include things like conservation authority issues, building and zoning matters, property tax, and local improvement arrears as well. And then you'll also find lots of other clauses in there, including coverage for things like liens and charges, third-party rights and rights of possession, restrictions, various agreements, easements, and the unmarketability of title. Now, when it comes to the unmarketability of title, it's important to note that several years back, all of the title insurers defined unmarketable title so that it's clear that matters relating only to the physical condition of improvements on the land do not cause title to be unmarketable. Okay, and last but not least, there is, of course, fraud coverage in the title insurance policy, and I'll get into more detail on that specific coverage a little bit later. So, that covers your covered risks section of the policy. But if you're looking for coverage, there are also other areas that you may want to refer to. For example, you may have endorsements attached to the policy. Probably the three most common endorsements would be the condominium endorsement, a multifamily residence endorsement, and a septic endorsement if the property is serviced by a septic system. So you've got those two areas, your covered risks. You may have endorsements, but then in addition to that, there's also a third area in the policy where you may find more coverage, and that would be in the schedule to the policy. This is where you would find any affirmative coverage that might be available. So if there's some sort of a problem with the transaction, something that you want to ask your title insurer to provide additional coverage for, you would normally do that through the policy order, and an underwriter would then reach out to you to discuss the issue and if possible, they may provide additional affirmative coverage and insert it into that schedule. And then even, aside from that, at the underwriter's discretion, that affirmative coverage may also be available to any future purchasers. Okay, so lots of different areas that you can look in the policy for coverage. Now, aside from coverage, it's equally important to acknowledge that there are exclusions to coverage, and there is a specific section in the policy that talks about exclusions, and there you'll find things like the exercise of governmental power or discretion, dangerous or hazardous substances on the land, the inability to construct improvements, native or Aboriginal land claims, a general knowledge exclusion, and then the owner's failure to comply with building codes. You think you're done now. You've got the covered risk section, your endorsements, and your schedule where you might find affirmative coverage. You've also got the section on exclusions, but there's more. There could also be exceptions to coverage. Those are transaction specific, and if there are exceptions to coverage, they'll be found in the schedule that's attached to the policy. Specifically with Title Plus, you'll not only find this information in the policy itself, but you'll also find the exceptions and the affirmative coverage in the purchaser's acknowledgement, which is a document that is printed and is signed by the clients with you prior to closing. So I do want to talk a little bit more about fraud, because that's really a hot topic today. There's been a lot of information in the news. I know we're getting a lot of phone calls. I know lawyers are getting a lot of phone calls. People are concerned about fraud, and they want to know how they can best protect themselves. So title insurance is really the best thing that anyone can do to obtain protection against fraud. And if you've got someone who maybe purchased property, say 10 years ago, but they didn't get title insurance when they originally bought, they can apply for an existing owner policy. Okay, so fraudsters are getting really creative, and they're switching the scenarios up all the time. We're even seeing on occasion, you've got a buyer, a seller, a mortgage broker, and even a lender who are all working together to perpetuate the fraud. Oftentimes, they're also using fake ID to impersonate the real owner. So I recommend referring to the avoidaclaim.com website. There is a section there called fraud prevention. You'll find a lot of write-ups. These are articles that are going over recent fraudulent transactions so that you can be aware of what types of things we're seeing. There are also several tips available there to help you when you're verifying your client's ID. And there are red flags to watch out for, which might indicate that there is some sort of fraud taking place. So in addition to that, it's important to understand what happens in the event of a claim when a fraud has taken place. So I'm going to speak from a Title Plus perspective here, but from our perspective, we're looking at two different scenarios, really. The first scenario would be where a title fraud had been committed. It involved the sale of the home by someone who was impersonating the homeowner. So if that's the case, Title Plus would first attempt to reinstate title into the defrauded homeowner's name. If for some reason it's not legally possible to reinstate title, then we would look to pay out the resulting loss to the homeowner, subject to the policy limit, along with inflation, which of course is subject to the terms and conditions of the policy. Now, in addition to the resulting loss, we would also pay out any legal fees associated with the title dispute, provided that those legal fees had been approved by Title Plus in advance. Okay. Now, the second scenario would be an innocent purchaser whose transfer or perhaps mortgage or perhaps both have been deleted from title. So in that case, Title Plus would look to pay out the mortgage and the resulting loss to the purchaser as well. And that would be any funds that the purchaser had paid towards the purchase of the home. And again, the same terms apply regarding the policy limit. So speaking of the policy limit, it's important to understand that the purchase price entered into the policy order is your policy limit. Now that will increase along with fair market value of the property, but that's all subject to the terms that are provided within the title insurance policy, and that can be found under a section that's called inflation coverage. So because property values have increased so much over the past few years, what's very important is someone who had purchased property and purchased a title insurance policy many years ago, their policy limit is subject to that purchase price back then when they originally obtained the policy with inflation. But is there enough coverage there to provide them with what they need if they have a claim today? So we do have something that's called an increased value endorsement, which is intended to rectify this exact situation. If you purchased a policy 10 years ago or more, and you want to increase the value of that policy so that you've got enough to cover your claim, what you want to do is go through your real estate lawyer. Now, as your real estate lawyer, you are going to collect some information and then contact a Title Plus underwriter, and they're the ones who are going to create this endorsement for you. The first thing that you need to do is register on mytitleplus.ca. Once you're registered, then they can create that endorsement, and they will be looking for a title search that goes back to the original date of purchase for that property. They'll also need an execution certificate against the homeowner. And you're going to need something to establish the value today for that property. There are a few different ways you do it. The first one would be a tax assessment, although to be honest, the tax office has really not caught up with property values. So we do actually recommend either a realtor's letter or an appraisal of the home. Either of those would be fine. Once you provide that information to the underwriter, they will then prepare a statutory declaration for the homeowner to sign so that they can confirm that they're not aware of anything that could give rise to a claim. Okay, so that would then provide this endorsement that gets attached to that original policy, and your policy limit has now been increased. So one of the coverages that is also included in the Title Plus covered risks is legal service coverage. This coverage is really important. It's insuring the lawyer's error. Essentially what this coverage does, and the way it reads, is that the insured is covered if the lawyer commits an error or omission in providing legal services for the transaction for which liability is imposed by law. So what that means is that the policy automatically is covering the legal services provided by the lawyer in the transaction, irregardless of whether or not that loss would have fallen under one of the other covered risks within the policy. And for Title Plus, it's automatically included in most of our policies at no extra cost because it's just been built into the policy premium. So in the event that there is a claim made under the Title Plus legal service coverage, you may be wondering, so how does that work with your primary E&O insurance provider? So what happens is that if the claim is submitted through Title Plus under the legal service coverage, the primary E&O policy isn't engaged whatsoever. It won't trigger a deductible. It won't trigger the claims history levy or the claims history levy surcharge in respect of that claim. Instead of being funded through the premiums that are paid to LAWPRO for errors and omissions insurance, we're funding these claims through the premiums that are paid for individuals purchasing Title Plus policies. Okay, it is important when you're choosing a title insurance provider to understand that not all policies are created equal. All title insurers do have some sort of coverage for a lawyer's error, but they may not all be the same. And it's important to make sure that you read those endorsements or the letters, or in Title Plus's case, the coverage that's provided in the covered risks section, and understand how that coverage applies. As a resource, Title Plus does have a podcast now. It's called the Title Plus In Closing podcast. And you can find that on YouTube. It's also available on Spotify as well as Apple Podcast. I encourage you to listen to the third episode. The guest on that podcast was Nadia Delante. She is the Title Plus claims manager as well as counsel with LAWPRO. And she talks about the Title Plus legal service coverage and how it would be applied in the event of a claim. And there's a lot of great information in there. So I do encourage you to listen to that. And the last thing I want to go over just briefly, if you're interested in ordering a Title Plus policy, again, you want to register on our standalone platform at mytitleplus.ca. Lawyers who are registering just log in with their LAWPRO number and LAWPRO password. The system will then import your profile. You'll log in one more time, verify that your information is correct, add any clerks that you would like associated with your account, provide your policy payment information, and agree to the terms and conditions. That's it, you'll be done. We do also encourage law clerks to register as well so that they have their own unique username and password. For your convenience, Title Plus has got partner integrations with both Unity as well as LDD's Realty Web platform. And of course, there is always the option of ordering on the standalone platform at mytitleplus.ca as well. So we are about out of time, and that pretty much wraps up everything that I have to say. So with that, I am going to give it back to you, Sean.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shauna. Now we are at 10:59, and I hope everyone will permit me to go for 5 more minutes and just address a couple of the questions that we have in the chat and also just wrap things up. I just want to go back to Cindy for a minute because we have a couple of questions asking specifically about the levy filings and the exemption eligibility for people who exclusively practice in family law. So can you clarify or confirm exactly what they should know about those kinds of exemption filings if they practice in family law and they're concerned about the civil litigation filings?
Of course. So for those lawyers that are practicing in family law, there's no need to file a transaction levy, as LAWPRO no longer would consider family law part of the civil litigation levy any longer. So they simply would file an exemption filing if they're only practicing in family law.
Okay, and then Victoria, I'm just going to put a question to you. There was a couple of questions about the insurance availability for lawyers who are acting as mediators, both during their practicing years and also in retirement. And can you clarify what they need to know and what they need to think about?
Right. So under our definition of professional services, we do give that as an example of when lawyers are acting in their capacity as a lawyer and doing work as a mediator. So if you're holding yourself out as a mediator, you know, you're doing it out of your law firm. If people are going to you because you're a lawyer, not because you're, you know, an engineer, and they're going to you for that specific. For the most part, the trouble is that, you know, a lot of times mediators aren't going to be sued for necessarily for the professional advice that they gave. You know, we're there to help you out if that's exactly what happened, if it's an allegation of negligence at all. But sometimes it might be about, you know, the intrinsic unfairness of the process or the office that you're out of. And so it's worth it to find out if you're operating out of like an ADR Chambers, what coverage they might have associated with that. But no, we don't have an exclusion for mediators or arbitrators if you're being, you know, retained because of your knowledge as a lawyer.
Okay, Victoria, and I do have another question for you. There was a couple of questions in the chat that had to do with the specific insurance needs for trademark and patent officers, and the question about any gap in coverage between the CPATA requirements and the Law Society's requirements for Ontario lawyers.
So just like with the mediators, we say patent and trademark agents are, you know, when you're acting in your capacity as a lawyer and doing that stuff. So with the CPATA requirements, we did say, it sounds like we meet all the requirements. And then CPATA said, but sometimes they're not going to be doing Canadian law. Sometimes it's going to be US law. We were, oh, really? And they were, yeah, no, it also has to cover if they're going to be doing US law. That's where the wheels fall off the bus, because we say it has to pertain to the laws of Canada. If it doesn't, then there could be a gap. And because there's that potential for a gap, CPATA does not recognize LawPro coverage as meeting the requirements. Other than that small window, we'd have it all covered. That's all I got to say on that one.
Okay, Victoria, and I think one more perhaps quick question back to Cindy. Could you confirm for the listeners the sense and range of the cost of any kind of excess runoff insurance that they want to purchase? Because that was one of the questions that came up in the FAQ.
Okay, so I presume you meant the increased runoff insurance?
Yes.
Okay, so there isn't an actual premium that we can provide to you upfront. Because it is an individually underwritten coverage, we would require an application form to be remitted. It will go through an underwriting process, and then we will issue an estimate. Now, the lawyer will be provided with 30 days to consider whether or not they wish to proceed with that coverage or not.
Okay. Now, I know we didn't, unfortunately, get to answer every single question today. If everyone could perhaps let people know where viewers could reach out to answer their questions on each topic. Victoria, I'm just going to start with you. If people do have questions on what you talked about today, who should they reach out to talk to at LawPro to get some answers on that?
Just like Cindy kept referring you to that service@lawpro.ca email, you can always send in questions there. We've also got a call center, but for tricky coverage questions, you probably want a written answer on them. But also look at the Practice Pro and the LawPro websites. We have a ton of materials on all of these things. And especially once this is actually posted on Practice Pro, we'll be doing links to like help you get to the resources that we talked about.
Absolutely. And for Catherine, if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out to you to talk about what you went over today, where can they reach out to get those questions answered?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will share the deck, and my contact details are on the lawyer's financial website under advisors. If for some reason you still you go to the site and you're not sure, we're a team. Reach out to me, and if it's not me, I will make sure you get to the right person without any hassle. I won't put you through anything. So contact me, we work together, and if it's not me, I'll get you to the right person.
And Shauna, if they have questions about Title Plus and what you spoke about?
Absolutely. They can use the email titleplus@lawpro.ca for any questions, and that will get forwarded to the appropriate department, and we'd be happy to answer them.
All right, excellent. So as Catherine mentioned, and as Victoria mentioned, this program, the video of it will be available in approximately a week, and it will be on the practicepro.ca/CPD website, where you can go to this particular program and you can rewatch this video, or you can look specifically at the slide decks or the additional materials that we have provided. You can also view the videos of our previous programs, including one that we did last month on fraud, which will cover some of the concerns that Shauna spoke about in terms of title insurance, and also just some of the cyber frauds that we are seeing recently, as LawPro spoke to a bunch of experts on that matter as well. This program is eligible for 1.5 hours of professionalism CPD. It's also eligible for LawPro's risk management credit. I want to thank the speakers that came out today, and I want to thank all of the listeners for tuning in, and I want to thank TLA as well for having these programs. Again, our next program is next month, June 22nd, where we're going to be giving tips for advocates. And with that, I will refer it back to Joan, and thanks for giving us 5 extra minutes. Or perhaps Sandra, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Sean. Thanks to our speakers. And the TLA, on behalf of our speakers, as a thank you, makes a donation to Lawyers Feed the Hungry. So we will be doing that on your behalf. And we thank you all for coming today.